Have you ever wondered why some men seem to attract attention effortlessly, while others try everything and still feel invisible? Why one man can walk into a room and suddenly everyone is drawn to him, while another man, even with money, status, and effort, struggles to create the same effect? Most men believe the answer is simple. They think attraction is about looks, or money, or saying the right words. But centuries ago, one of the most controversial thinkers in history suggested something very different. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. While most people remember Machiavelli for his political philosophy and ruthless understanding of power, very few realize that he was also a careful observer of human nature, especially the hidden motivations that drive people's behavior. Machiavelli believed something uncomfortable but powerful. People rarely say what they truly want. Instead, their real desires reveal themselves through their actions. And when Machiavelli studied relationships, social dynamics, and human ambition, he noticed a pattern that many men completely misunderstand. A pattern that repeats across cultures, centuries, and societies. Men often chase what they believe women want, but women are rarely attracted to the things men think matter most. This misunderstanding has caused countless men to waste their energy trying to impress others instead of developing the one trait that truly commands attention. The Stoic philosophers noticed this pattern too. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, once wrote that people are constantly searching for external validation while ignoring the most important thing, the strength of their own character. Because in reality, people are not drawn to desperation. They are drawn to certainty. And that leads us to a brutal but powerful realization. Most men spend their lives trying to please others. But the individuals who naturally attract attention are the ones who are not controlled by the need to be liked. This difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Imagine two men entering a room. The first man immediately tries to impress everyone. He speaks louder. He exaggerates his achievements. He tries to appear important. The second man behaves differently. He is calm. He observes more than he speaks. He does not rush to prove his value. And strangely enough, people begin to notice him more. Why? Because human psychology is deeply sensitive to confidence that does not seek approval. Machiavelli understood this well. He believed that people instinctively gravitate toward individuals who appear self-sufficient. Not because those individuals are trying to dominate others, but because their presence signals something rare, inner authority. And this brings us to the first insight. Insight 1. The one thing people truly respect is inner power. Most men misunderstand attraction because they focus on external tools, money, status, material displays. But Machiavelli observed that these things only create temporary interest. What creates lasting influence is something deeper, inner power. A man with inner power does not beg for attention. He does not chase approval. He does not feel the need to constantly prove himself. His presence communicates something simple but powerful. I know who I am. And that kind of certainty creates a psychological effect that few people can ignore. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus explained this idea in a very direct way. He said that the strongest person is not the one who controls others. The strongest person is the one who controls himself. Because when a person becomes emotionally independent, when they stop needing constant validation, their behavior changes. They become calmer, more focused, more deliberate. They stop reacting to every small social signal. And suddenly, people begin to notice them in a completely different way. Why? Because most people are unconsciously searching for stability. In a chaotic world filled with insecurity, someone who appears centered and self-directed stands out immediately. Machiavelli believed this was the real foundation of influence. Not manipulation, not tricks, but psychological strength. Yet here is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because Machiavelli eventually realized that most men fail to develop this strength for one simple reason. They are constantly chasing something that actually destroys their power without them realizing it. And the moment you understand this trap, you will start seeing it everywhere. In relationships, social circles, and even in successful men who quietly lose control of their lives. In the first part, we uncovered something that most men never fully realize. Attraction is not built on chasing approval. It is built on inner power, the quiet confidence of someone who does not depend on others to feel valuable. But Machiavelli noticed something even more revealing when he studied human relationships. He realized that most men lose their power long before they even have the chance to build it. And the reason is surprisingly simple. They try too hard, not because they are weak, not because they lack intelligence, but because they misunderstand one fundamental principle of human psychology. The moment a man begins seeking validation, he unconsciously places the other person in a position of power. Think about this carefully. If your mood changes based on someone's attention, if your confidence rises when they approve of you, if your behavior shifts just to keep them interested, then who is truly in control of the dynamic? Not you. And Machiavelli understood this deeply. He believed that influence in human relationships often comes down to perceived value. People instinctively move toward what appears valuable and away from what appears desperate. This is not cruelty. It is simply human nature. The Stoics described this phenomenon centuries before modern psychology existed. Seneca wrote that the person who depends on the approval of others will always feel unstable, because the opinions of others change constantly. Today someone admires you. Tomorrow they ignore you. The next day they criticize you. If your confidence is built on those reactions, your identity will feel like a ship tossed around by unpredictable waves. But when someone builds their confidence internally, through discipline, purpose, and clarity, something fascinating happens. Their behavior becomes steady, and stability is incredibly attractive in a chaotic world. Machiavelli noticed that people are naturally drawn toward individuals who appear self-sufficient, not arrogant, not aggressive, but emotionally independent. Because emotional independence sends a powerful signal. This person is not trying to take something from me. Instead, it communicates something much stronger. This person already feels complete, and when someone feels complete, their presence changes the energy of every interaction. They listen more, they react less, they speak with intention rather than desperation, and slowly, without even trying, they begin to command more respect. This brings us to the second insight. Insight 2. The more you chase attention, the less power you have. This may sound harsh, but Machiavelli believed it explained many of the struggles men face in relationships and social environments. The harder someone tries to gain attention, the more they signal that they need it. And neediness weakens influence. Imagine two different scenarios. In the first situation, someone constantly tries to impress everyone around them. They talk excessively. They exaggerate their achievements. They constantly seek approval through jokes, compliments, and attention. At first, people may entertain them. But over time, the behavior begins to feel predictable, and predictable behavior rarely inspires respect. Now imagine the second scenario. A person enters the same environment but behaves differently. They speak less, but when they speak, people listen. They are comfortable with silence. They are not rushing to prove their worth. Instead, they carry themselves with quiet certainty. Which person do you think naturally commands more attention? Almost always, it is the second. Because people are subconsciously drawn to individuals who appear in control of themselves. Marcus Aurelius understood this concept extremely well. Despite being the emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men in the world, he constantly reminded himself not to seek admiration. In his personal writings, he warned against becoming addicted to praise. Because once you begin depending on praise, you also become vulnerable to criticism. And the moment someone else controls your emotional state, you have already lost part of your freedom. This is why Stoic philosophy places so much emphasis on self-mastery. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotional independence creates stability, and stability creates strength. But Machiavelli also noticed something else that made this dynamic even more complex. Many men do not just seek validation. They unconsciously build their entire identity around impressing others. They believe that attention equals success. But attention can be a dangerous trap, because the moment someone begins chasing admiration, they slowly lose sight of something far more important: purpose. And this is where the real problem begins. Because a man who loses his sense of purpose becomes extremely vulnerable to distraction. And distraction slowly drains the very qualities that make someone truly powerful. In the previous parts, we uncovered two powerful ideas. First, real attraction does not come from chasing approval. It comes from inner power. Second, the more a man seeks validation and attention, the more he slowly gives away his influence. But Machiavelli discovered something even deeper about human behavior. something that quietly destroys the strength of many men without them even realizing it. It is not lack of intelligence. It is not lack of opportunity. It is loss of direction. Because when Machiavelli studied people closely, he noticed a pattern that appeared again and again throughout history. Many men begin their lives with ambition. They want to build something meaningful. They want respect. They want success. But somewhere along the way, their focus shifts. Instead of building their purpose, they begin chasing approval, pleasure, and attention. And slowly, their energy becomes scattered. This is one of the most dangerous traps in human psychology. Because when a man loses his focus, he does not fail immediately. He simply begins drifting. And drifting is far more destructive than failure. Failure can teach a lesson, but drifting slowly erodes discipline, clarity, and ambition. Machiavelli believed that the strongest individuals in history were not the ones who constantly reacted to the world around them. They were the ones who remained focused on their own path, regardless of distractions. The Stoic philosophers understood this idea with remarkable clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a person must guard their mind carefully because the world constantly tries to pull it in 1,000 different directions. Every day brings new distractions, new temptations, new opportunities to abandon long-term goals for short-term satisfaction. And the majority of people fall into this pattern without even noticing. They start measuring their worth based on external reactions, likes, compliments, attention, social approval. But these things are unstable. They change constantly. And when someone builds their identity around unstable things, their sense of direction becomes unstable too. This leads us to the third insight. Insight 3. The man with purpose becomes naturally attractive. Machiavelli observed something fascinating about individuals who possessed strong purpose. They did not spend their time trying to impress others. They were too busy building something meaningful. Their energy was directed toward growth, discipline, and long-term goals. And because of that focus, they naturally developed qualities that others found compelling. Confidence, calmness, self-respect. Not because they were trying to create these traits, but because purpose forces a person to grow. Imagine two different men again. The first man spends most of his time seeking attention and reacting to other people's opinions. His mood changes based on how others treat him. He constantly adjusts his behavior to gain approval. The second man behaves differently. He wakes up each day with a clear mission. He invests his time improving his skills. He works on his goals. He develops discipline. He builds something that matters to him. And because of that, his life begins moving forward. People notice progress. They notice confidence. They notice direction. But here is the key point. The second man is not chasing attention. His focus is somewhere else entirely. And ironically, that is exactly what makes people curious about him. Because humans instinctively respect individuals who appear driven by purpose rather than by approval. Seneca once wrote that a person who lives according to their purpose becomes immune to many of the distractions that weaken others. Not because temptation disappears, but because their mission is stronger than the temptation. And when someone reaches that level of clarity, something powerful happens. Their presence changes. They become calmer, more focused, less reactive, and people begin to sense that they are not easily influenced by shallow things. Machiavelli believed that this type of individual was extremely rare, because most people spend their lives reacting to the world rather than directing their own path. But those who develop strong purpose gain something that cannot easily be taken away: inner stability. And stability creates influence. However, Machiavelli also believed that reaching this level of strength requires one final realization. A realization that separates ordinary men from truly disciplined ones. Because even a man with purpose can still fall into weakness if he does not master one final principle. And that principle determines whether someone truly controls their life or whether their impulses quietly control them. In the previous parts, we uncovered 3 powerful truths. First, true attraction and influence do not come from chasing approval, but from inner power. Second, the more a man seeks attention and validation, the more he quietly loses control of the dynamic. Third, the man who lives with clear purpose naturally develops the confidence and stability that others respect. But Machiavelli believed that even these qualities are not enough unless a man masters one final principle. Because purpose can exist, yet still collapse under pressure. Confidence can exist, yet still disappear when temptation appears. And discipline can exist, yet still weaken when comfort becomes too attractive. This is why the Stoic philosophers insisted that the most important battle a person will ever fight is not against others. It is against themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote something remarkable in his private journal. He said that the greatest victory a person can achieve is the victory over their own impulses. Because once someone learns to govern their mind, no external circumstance can truly control them. And this leads us to the final insight. Insight 4. The man who controls himself cannot be controlled. Machiavelli observed that the strongest individuals in history shared one powerful trait. They had mastered their impulses. They did not allow emotions, distractions, or temporary desires to dictate their decisions. This does not mean they were emotionless. It means they had learned to pause before reacting. Think about how most people behave in daily life. They react immediately to everything. Praise excites them. Criticism angers them. Temptation pulls them away from their plans. Distraction steals their focus. Their emotions constantly push them in different directions. But a disciplined man behaves differently. When temptation appears, he pauses. When someone provokes him, he pauses. When an opportunity for pleasure tries to pull him away from his path, he pauses again. That pause may seem small, but it is incredibly powerful. Because in that moment, a person chooses whether their life will be guided by impulse or by principle. Epictetus explained this beautifully. He said that true freedom is not the ability to do whatever you feel like doing. True freedom is the ability to choose what is right, even when something else feels easier. And once a person learns to operate this way, something incredible happens. They become extremely difficult to manipulate. They are not easily distracted. They are not easily pressured. They are not easily controlled by external opinions, because their decisions come from within. Machiavelli respected this type of individual deeply, not because they were ruthless or dominant, but because they had achieved something rare. They had developed inner authority. Inner authority means that your actions are guided by your values rather than by your impulses. It means you are not constantly reacting to the world. Instead, you are directing your own life. And when a man reaches that level of self-mastery, everything begins to change. He no longer wastes energy trying to impress others. He no longer feels the need to chase validation. He no longer allows temporary pleasures to weaken his long-term goals. Instead, he moves through life with quiet certainty. And ironically, that is the kind of presence people notice the most. Because real strength is rarely loud. It is calm, stable, controlled. That is the type of strength the Stoics admired. And that is the kind of power Machiavelli believed most people fail to understand. Not the power over others, but the power over yourself. Because once a man governs his own mind, his own desires, and his own direction, he no longer needs to chase influence. Influence naturally follows him. So the next time the world tries to pull your attention in 1,000 directions, pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this strengthening my life or weakening it? Every time you choose discipline over impulse, clarity over distraction, and purpose over approval, you strengthen the one thing that truly determines your future, your character. And once your character becomes strong enough, the world's distractions lose their power over you. If this message made you think differently, make sure you subscribe to Quiet Stoic for more insights about discipline, self-mastery, and timeless Stoic wisdom. And before you leave, write this in the comments. Self-mastery is the highest power, because the men who understand that truth are the ones who quietly build the strongest lives.